I'm moving forward every day, Jesus. I just let him lead the way every second, every minute, every hour of the day. I'm moving with Jesus every day, 24/7. With Jesus every day, 24/7. I'm moving with Jesus. I'm moving with Jesus every day.
Welcome to JC 24/7. We kick off a series of important and relevant discussions, and we focus today on the road to intimacy and its pitfalls. I am Rhonda Fisher-Winchester, your host for this series. Today, we have a panel of experts in their own right. We have Pastor Wayne Sampson, who has been married for 42 years, and he has faced the ups and downs of relationships. He also counsels young and not so young on heart matters on a range of topics. We also have Petra Pierre Robertson. She is a motivational speaker interfacing with the youth. She is also a youth herself. Petra is a cross-country speaker on matters that affect the youth and the young at heart. We also have Dr. Oscar Ocho, who has been married for 34 years. He is also a well-sought-after speaker on matters of family and family life. Finally, we have Dr. Dana Hari-Nero, a psychologist with experience and who treats behavioral issues and is also qualified to provide premarital counseling. When we speak about intimacy, it is in the broader context of relationships. Human beings are made for relationships. So, why does it seem so complicated, Pastor Sampson?
Well, indeed. Of course, your opening statement is so true. Now, we're all designed that way, the search for intimacy, a place where safety and security can be experienced, a space where you are required to make yourself vulnerable to another with only relative assurance that you will not get hurt. And noting two individuals coming into that space with both having that search for intimacy, different backgrounds will give to them three personal things that they're coming with. And I underscore the word personal. They're coming with expectations, they're coming with ideas, and their values, rather personal to them. But how those three would have been derived, from whence they were derived, maybe from two different spaces. And of course, therefore, the expectations, the ideas, and the values may not necessarily be the same. And pulling that together can be a challenging task, and if not wisely managed, can even yield your worst pain.
Yes. Wow, interesting. Petra, this whole concept of relationships and its complications, and you have seen so many youths enter into relationships and, it ends badly at times. Why is this so complicated?
I want to stress on the expectations, as Pastor Sampson mentioned. When we confuse relationship with friendship, there is a difference. Good friendships make good relationships. But unfortunately, persons have lumped relationship and friendship into one. Friendship is an interaction between two persons with no expectations, no commitments. You are my friend only because we align and we may have similarities and we enjoy each other's company. When you get into the realm of relationship, you get into intention, expectations, and commitment. And this is normally where the complications begin. The complications begin there because with the expectations, you have different personalities coming to the fore. And it is said that the closer you get to each other, the more you reveal of yourself. The more you bond and the closer you get, you reveal more of yourself. When you reveal more of yourself, the other person now is realizing, okay, can I deal with this? But sometimes, because the relationship did not build as it should, at the point in time you need to pull back from a relationship, not a friendship, it is too late because the relationship had been fast-tracked. So if we start on friendship and separate friendship from relationship, then the same understanding, the same fun, the same enjoyment we have in friendship can carry over into relationship with patience, tact, communication, integrity, trust, and security. These things that make for friendship are the same factors that will make for good relationships.
Thank you so much, Petra. So here we see that while relationships are a natural part of our human life, it is not as easy. Unfortunately, many times we enter into relationships blindly. We see, we like, we conquer. But many times there are red flags that signal that something is wrong or shady. Sometimes we may say that there are always red flags. When entering relationships, what are some of the red flags that we should look for? Oscar?
I'm glad you asked that question, and I want to go back to Petra and Pastor Sampson, because very often when we look at relationships and intimacy, we are looking very often just at sexual intimacy and forgetting that there are other dimensions like intellectual intimacy. What do we talk about? What do we share in common? What do we enjoy together? You're also looking at social intimacy. What are our backgrounds? Are we coming with the same value systems into this relationship? I may be coming from a well-manicured, well-sheltered home. Somebody else may be coming from a home where everything is everything and nothing is nothing. So when we are looking now at red flags very often are right in front of our very eyes. But sometimes we say love is blind. And because we think that love is blind, we try to deny sometimes that what we are seeing exists. And some people also believe that they could change the person. So what kind of language is used? Is it the same? Do you feel respected? The way the person expresses himself or herself to you? How do they, and what kind of adjectives do they use to describe your family? You know, is the person, when you are disagreeing with each other, how does the person behave when it comes to disagreement? Do they find themselves holding back, not wanting to talk for 2, 3, 4 days, sometimes a week? I'm not going to call you until you call me, and you must apologize before I could be able to speak with you. Those are critical red flags that sometimes we ignore.
Very interesting. But I can hear someone in the audience thinking, I saw no red flags. This person was a perfect boyfriend, a perfect girlfriend. Dania, are there always red flags?
There are always red flags. They're what we call general red flags that are straight across the board. We have personal red flags, which are just, personal pet peeves of things that you don't like, in another individual that you might be expressing interest in. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, there are always red flags.
Okay. Are there any other red flags that we can, look out for, apart from what was shared by Oscar, that you can share with us?
Speaking from a behavioral perspective, we have what we call those personality traits, negative personality traits. And just giving some examples, we have misogyny, manipulation, or gaslighter, as we call it, a narcissist, or somebody that is very egocentric.
Okay. This question actually takes me back to a number of presentations that Petra, you would have done in the past that speaks about this whole cycle of dating and relationship. When I was a youth also, I remember, Petra really, if it's one thing that stayed with me. Petra, share with us, how if we go through, or if a youth or a young person goes through the phases as they should be able to pick up red flags before they get into a serious relationship.
Correct. It comes back to what I was speaking about in terms of friendship. I've had young people tell me, Oscar, as you talk about communication, what I'll do on a date. So I say, talk, because when you go on a date to hold hands and, to be together and so on. But when we look at the whole process of relationship, we talk about friendship again. A lot of time the problem happens because persons mix up the noun dating with the verb dating, right? So when we talk about the noun dating or going, we talk about a process that is intentional. You are dating with the intention to get married. That is the noun. But when we talk about the verb dating, we talk about going out on a date, a business date, a lunch date, a date when you are married, socialization. And because these concepts are mixed up, you have persons entering into relationships prematurely. And there are certain red flags that you would miss because you didn't communicate. In other words, does the person, whether male or female, constantly need compliments? They only talk about themselves. They are just name dropping. They gaslight you, They say, I could tell you anything because we close, And when you leave the person, when you leave a conversation with the person, you feel worse instead of better, right? Red flag. It's difficult to carry on a conversation without being put down and corrected. Red flag. The person is not happy with you when good things happen. If you are talking about a good thing happening to yourself, the person has to come with a bigger, better thing that happened to them. There are certain red flags that stand out, and then there are other red flags that may be because of social behaviors like drug addicts or alcoholics and so on. These are certain red flags you have to watch. Then there are other red flags in terms of personality type. But as I would say, each person is a personality. Pastor Samson, probably you could come in here. Somebody told me the other day, can two good people make a bad marriage? I said, two good people could make a bad marriage. And two bad people could make a good marriage. Because it's how you how you define bad, how you define good and relationship. You may want to build on that, I think.
Yes, and in addition to what was said, before I go there, one of the major red flags that I think need to be looked at here, a person's willingness to get your story but not revealing theirs. So they're forever probing at you to understand your story. Any person who has your story is in a position to manipulate things to get what they want. And coming back to the question that was raised there a while ago about two good persons can definitely create a bad marriage. And when the red flags are not considered, because as I said earlier on, persons are coming with those three personal things, their expectations, their ideas, and such alike. And when they refuse, there is a refusal to listen to the other person. What is that person's expectation? What are that person's ideas on particular goals and such alike? But they're just simply manipulating things to satisfy themselves. Of course, even though there may be two good persons by themselves, but coming together, not being able to pull ideas, expectations, and values under the same goal as it were, can definitely yield a whole lot of pain. And the thing about it is, these three things are so personal to one person when they're coming in that I can be relatively comfortable with my idea. I'm rather comfortable. As a matter of fact, you love me based on the ideas that I was sharing with you. You came into my space after hearing my expectations and such. Like, no, you're in it and you want me to change? No, sorry, Bob. I am. This is who I am, and there is a refusal to now look into the other person's space. I believe then that an audience is created. An audience need to be created where one person is the listener, and the other person is the one telling the story, and then it is flipped around in order to bring some evenness to the whole experience there.
We don't realize that every piece of information that somebody wants to elicit from you, there's an intention.
Definitely.
And sometimes they try to elicit the information, red flag, to throw it back in your face, where they want to remind you. And that's why we need to help people to recognize that you do not begin bearing your soul too early in a relationship if there is no friendship.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow. So
I normally give a green flag because we talk about red flags a lot. And I gave this green flag to a group of young people last week and week before, was it? I can't remember when. But ironically, the green flag, the acronym came up to Christ. Think about that when you go in friendship and relationship. C, communication. H, honesty. R, respect. I, integrity. S, security. And T, trust. You're not getting that. Be careful with our relationship.
very, very interesting discussion, even as we consider all these red flags. A lot of them, seem to be more behavioral and psychological, I guess, in some areas. Pastor Sampson, I anticipate that based on your profession, you would have engaged in a number of counseling sessions where these matters would have already gone a distance, meaning that by the time they come to you, flags are waving all over the place, right? What do you counsel, or what can you share coming out of these learnings that can help persons who may be facing or seeing these red flags? They do not know what to do. They love. They're strong feelings. They may have engaged in sexual intimacy before other types of intimacy, and of course they would have developed a bond. How do they treat with seeing these red flags and coming out whole?
Now, that question is one that my own head being tossed back and forth here now. Here am I in a relationship. Let me ensure that I understand the question right. I'm in a relationship. I'm already in it. I'm seeing red flags, but I would have engaged the relationship inappropriately.
Yes.
I did not follow the process as shared by my dear sister here. What should I do then? If I am honest with my own self, I got to stop and consider. It's necessary. Could I go forward with this and endure the pain that is now coming at me? Or I want to have this thing fixed, and could it be fixed? There are some hard questions that got to be answered, and some decisions taken may not necessarily satisfy the other person's expectations there. But if you're discovering that red flags are saying to you are going into a danger zone where the hurt can come your way, one got to be sensible for sure and take the steps that are necessary. I have come to understand, though, that many a times in our social space, and sometimes even in our church community, because we put commitment, let me put it this way, where we mixed acceptance and approval as one experience, you can find a person not stepping away from because they seem to they're now being judgmental and such alike.
Yes.
Not knowing I could accept you, but not necessarily approve that which you are now doing.
Yes.
And if that which you are now doing is not acceptable, I have to now take care of me. I cannot love you more than I love myself.
Wow. So
if I'm to come in here, I think something that is so critical is, why do people end up in relationships in the first place? And you see, some people enter into relationships on a rebound. Danger, danger, danger. Yeah? Some people enter relationships because they want to get away from home. They want their freedom. They want to go on their own, but they don't realize that going on your own, you will not be on your own. Because when you enter a relationship, you are not just joining yourself to a person, but a family.
That's right.
And people have to recognize that there are certain family traits that you have to consider very carefully before you make a commitment. Some family may be accustomed going in front of the courthouse every week. Is this what you want for your children or grandchildren? You cannot say, don't talk to this one, because they will forever be part of your family. So why do people end up in relationships? And you see, especially, I have realized young people who fail to listen to counsel, sometimes they're so embarrassed now when they realize that things didn't work out because they were going headlong without recognizing that love, while it's an emotional thing, it's also a cognitive thing.
Yes. And I would like to pose a question to Dana. Are there persons who tend to attract the wrong type of persons? It is a kind of question that, generally you hear, and coming out of what Oscar said, in terms of why are you going into a relationship? I know some persons just attract drama. Every Monday morning, it's a new thing. Are there personalities or behaviors that seem to attract, time and time again, persons who can cause pain to them?
I would say yes, and I would say no. Reason being, a lot of times when we get into relationships or we are looking for that partner and such, we tend to forget, and Pastor Samson mentioned it, we tend to forget ourselves. We tend to forget what we are about, who we are, whose we are. And we start putting that person or what we're looking for before our own, let's say, health. For example, and I'm talking about health on a holistic point here. And we will see certain red flags, look at it, believe that we are the Holy Spirit and we can change it. That's not possible. We cannot change anyone. And sometimes there is that thin line. I also tell people there's a thin line between those negative personality traits, like I mentioned before, the narcissist, the person who has that inflated sense of self. They are so important that no one else can tell them anything. No one else could. Opinions is as important as their own. That person who will bring down females, the misogynist. You have that type of person, the manipulator, who will tell you, well, I grew up in a household where everything was a particular type of way. But in reality, that person is just gaslighting you and controlling you. And in terms of all of these things, there are people, because they don't know who they are, their self-esteem is so low, they attract these types of people. They bring these types of people into their space because those type of people look for those type of people. They look for the people that they can easily manipulate, the people that they can easily control, people that they could, for want of a better word, walk all over. And it will be okay because this person is not going to stand up to me. This person is not going to put up a fight because this person has no self-worth. This person does not believe in themselves. So they do attract the drama. They do attract, basically it's a prey attracting a hunter.
Right.
And that is what it is. So they do have it, yes. They attract it. And then there are some people who believe that they are the fixer. And they will go looking for those type of people because I can fix.
Relationships are about complementarity rather than competition.
That's right.
So that all of us, that's why God said from the very first book in the Bible, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet. That is someone who is suitable, not to make up for your faults and your deficiency, but one who will be able to enhance your personality, enhance your character, enhance your place. And that's why we have to recognize, and I keep stressing, we enter relationships not to be lord over the other person or not to belittle, but we can both grow together. And that's the value of relationship.
And if I want to build, it seems like you were looking into my script because I wanted to say that when we enter a relationship to give, it means we know what we have to give. So in relationships, instead of looking at changing the other person or what the other person should be, do your self-reflection. Who are you? What are you bringing to the table? And if each party in a relationship gets into a relationship to bring to the table, then each person will enhance each other. I will want what is best for you. You will want what is best for me. And the relationship, even though there are difficulties and so on, we do stuff with each other in mind, because at the end of the day, we want that person to be a reflection of us. We want to be a reflection of that person. We want to feed off each other, enhance each other, and grow together. For that to happen, each individual must do self-reflection.
Could I go further with that? Just the same. I mean, what I'm hearing her say then, there's a need for mutual trust and respect. There's need for mutual being available one for the other and being responsive one to the other. Those three things got to come together in order to sustain the intimacy that one is searching for.
And just to add to that, I always have the belief, or have a saying that says, you don't go into a relationship for somebody to complete you.
Yes.
A relationship is to complete people.
Yes.
It's 100% here, we're using numbers, and 100% here.
Yes.
And as harsh as it might sound, I always say, broken people don't go into relationships, because all you will be doing is basically taking from the other person and you're not giving anything back. And you're basically sucking the essence out of that other person and you're not giving them anything to replenish anything. So at the end of the day, when you walk away because this isn't working for me, you're walking away and you're leaving a broken person. And that's how we end up with more broken people. So before you go into a relationship, like Petra said, fix yourself.
Yes.
Self-reflection. Focus on what you need to do to become a better you first, and then proceed into wanting a relationship.
Yes. Wow, we would have covered quite a lot in our short time. Our time is coming to an end for this session. And definitely we see that there is so much more that we must delve into so that our listeners are able to understand relationships in its truest sense and how they can benefit and give as whole as possible in these relationships. We would have covered red flags. We would have looked at being able to give as a whole person, 100, 100. You know, that's a concept that I've heard many times around. We have also learned and appreciated that in order for us to truly be able to understand and give in a relationship, we must go through the process systematically. We cannot just dive into. We also appreciate that there's much more to intimacy than sexual intimacy. And even as we consider partners, etc., we must ensure that the other parts, intellectual intimacy, etc., there's compatibility in that regard. And so we would have built a good foundation to press forward to our next session. So we look forward to you being here with us with this same panel as we delve into narcissism and what it really means.